Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Lauren.
I am Ken.
And this is Paradise After Dark.
Dark.
Paradise After Dark is a bi-weekly podcast covering true crime,
unsolved mysteries,
missing people,
urban legends, and the dark side of the Sunshine State.
If you'd like to support our show and get a bunch of extra Paradise After Dark content, sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/Paradise After Dark podcast.
And everyone, please go check out our brand new website with our brand new store. Everything is right there at your fingertips.
On the website, you'll find links to all of our episodes, our mailing list, our social medias, and our Patreon.
We also have a virtual tip jar now, so leave us a tip and we'll give you a shout out on the show. As a matter of fact, we have our first tip in the tip jar.
Yay!
Elizabeth, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it, so thanks for being our first. Woo woo.
And speaking of shout-outs, let's read one of our most recent 5-star reviews.
Okay, this is from Denise C.T. Crime and Urban Legends. She writes, if crime, unsolved disappearances, and urban legends for the Southwest Florida area is your interest, this is the podcast to listen to. Forget Wink News. This podcast dives deeper into the unsolved murders in our area. Not being a native of the area, as most of us aren't, it's fun to listen to the urban legends and hear the stories behind them. This couple is a joy to listen to and easy to understand. Great audio and details to back up their information. Thank you very much. Are you sure she's talking about us?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. I'm blushing a little bit.
I
think I was blushing on the last one, but that was steamy. I liked it.
Me too.
So, Lauren.
Yes. This week we are discussing a family annihilator.
That doesn't sound good at all.
Celebration, Florida. Family annihilator has sort of become a popular word in the last couple of years.
It shouldn't be at all.
It shouldn't be, no. But I think that Chris Watts kind of kicked that off. The trendy word, the trendiness of the words family annihilator. This case we're talking about tonight happened in a town called Celebration, Florida. Celebration is a master-planned community in Osceola County, Florida. It's located near Walt Disney World Resort and was originally developed by the Walt Disney Company. The Walt Disney Company began construction on the town in May 1994. Roughly 5,000 people arrived in Celebration on November 18, 1995, with hopes of being part of the lucky first residents. 1,200 deposits of $1,000 were submitted to enter the lottery for an opportunity to own a home in the new community. The first family moved into their residence on June 18, 1996.
Could you imagine wanting to live somewhere like that and then having to enter a lottery?
They're probably all like the Disney enthusiasts.
Yeah.
So the town itself is connected to Walt Disney World Resort via one of its primary streets, World Drive, which begins near the Magic Kingdom. Celebration has unique architecture and a quaint atmosphere, but it does not have a lot of Disney influence. The town boasts beautiful views and pastel-colored buildings.
Ugh, not a fan of pastel-colored buildings. Well, some do believe that Celebration was originally supposed to be inspired by Walt Disney's dream of creating the perfect utopian city, which would have been named the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, aka Epcot. So not like the Epcot that we know of today, but this was supposed to be on sort of a...
So Epcot was supposed to be like a perfect utopian
community. Yeah. So his original plan involved placing the entire city under a climate-controlled dome and limiting transportation options to maximize monorail usage. But none of Disney's original vision really came to fruition in Celebration, and the famed creator died in 1966, way obviously, like Lauren said, it was 1996, almost 30 years prior. And obviously, this is decades before the town was born. But in 2004, Disney did sell the town to a private equity firm for $6.5 million. This is according to the New York Times. And like most towns in the U.S., whether they're public, private, regardless of where they're close to, whatever, there will be crime. And the first murder in Celebration occurred in 2010. And then 10 years later, the town had its second murder. Well, murders, actually. That's plural.
Anthony Todt lived in Celebration, Florida with his wife, Megan, 42. Their 3 children, Alec, 13, Tyler, 11, and Zoe, 4, and their dog, Breezy. Now, Todt split his time between Florida and Connecticut. He was described as a well-liked physical therapist and soccer coach in Colchester, Connecticut, where he lived half the time. He typically lived in Connecticut during the week and traveled to see his family in Celebration, Florida, every weekend. In November 2019, he left behind his physical therapy patients and employees with no answers as to when he would return. An article in the Orlando Sentinel did a great job of piecing together a timeline for this case, and we relied heavily on this for our research. So family members had last seen Anthony Todt, the 45-year-old physical therapist, on November 22, 2019 in Connecticut for Thanksgiving. The day prior, Todt had met with federal investigators investigating his physical therapy business in Connecticut and confessed to a brazen healthcare fraud scheme in which he had for years collected thousands of dollars from Medicaid and private insurers for care that he never actually provided to patients.
Well, I know in this case, it was like that accumulated to almost $130,000.
I think so, yeah.
But I wonder, I'm kind of curious as to how much actually gets paid out in these schemes throughout the course of a year. Now, this is just one guy in Connecticut, physical therapist. Can you imagine how much money gets paid out? I bet you that number is absolutely freaking astronomical. I bet it's huge.
So his sister, Chrissy Caplet, called the Osceola County Sheriff's Office on December 29th after she hadn't heard from anyone in the family of 5 since either December 23rd or 24th, according to a recording of her call.
So she called 5 days after, 5 or 6 days after the last time she talked to him, or that she knew their whereabouts.
Yes.
Okay.
She claimed the family had been sick and she hadn't been able to get in touch with them, so she was concerned. She also asked deputies to check a condo the family owned on Longview Avenue, less than half a mile from the rental house on Reserve Place. Deputies did a welfare check, but were not able to contact anyone in the Todt family and didn't find anything suspicious.
So at this point, there's nothing to point any fingers at anything other than just people aren't answering their phones.
Right.
But relatives and friends said that January 6th was the actual last time that they had any communications with the Todts. And this was in the form of text messages from Anthony and Megan Todt's phones. Now, a family member received a text message from Anthony Todd's phone that day saying the device had been found at a Starbucks in Sarasota and it would be turned over to the police. And it's unclear who sent this message. And to me, this would have really caused fear for the family.
Right.
Like, hey, we found this phone here. If we don't find out who it is, we're going to turn it over to the police.
Yeah.
Which would be a good thing normally, but if they're already missing, you can't communicate with them and you don't know what their whereabouts when they find the phone. To me, this just seems like it would definitely, bring fear to the surface for the immediate family.
Right.
Well, a neighbor of Todt's Longview Avenue condo that Lauren spoke about earlier told deputies she had texted Megan Todt that same exact day to let her know that there was an eviction notice on the family's front door. The neighbor said Megan replied with a text message that said, "Okay, thanks." Over the next several days, family, acquaintances, and federal officials who had an arrest warrant and were searching for Anthony Todt called OCSO repeatedly with concerns for the family.
On January 9th, an FBI agent called to seek help finding Anthony Todt. Soon after, Chrissy Caplet, again, that's Anthony's sister, called back asking for another wellness check, mentioning that she had heard about the FBI's investigation. My sister-in-law made a comment that basically the world is ending on December 28th and nobody has talked to them, Caplet told dispatchers. Nobody has physically talked to my sister-in-law since the 26th of December, and my brother stopped texting as of Monday, January 6th. So on January 10th, about 5 p.m., 2 deputies went out to the 2 homes that the Todt family owned in Celebration, Florida, citing the request from the FBI and the Todt's relatives. They first went to the Reserve Place home and knocked on the front door as well as the door to the garage apartment, but got no answer. The mail in the mailbox was dated January 6th, deputies reported. An eviction notice left on the door December 31st was still there. They then went to the Longview Avenue condo, where an eviction notice was also on the door. The deputies said they found the family's van, a maroon Honda Odyssey, parked behind Building 11 in the complex, though the family's condo was in Building 9. The deputy called back Caplet with updates, and she said the entire family's phones go straight to voicemail.
Deputies went back to both homes the following day, and this was on January 11th, finding the van. It hadn't even moved, and again, no answer at either home, which I guess they rented. If there's eviction notice, were they renting those homes?
I think
Leasing
so.
them?
I think they were renting.
Okay. Well, the owner of the reserve place, the home that they were staying at the reserve place, Yasmin Doherty, he's the owner. He called Osceola County Sheriff's Office on January 12th to ask for a welfare check. He's quoted as saying, "I own the property that I rent out, and I have concerns for the family. On the social media, I have just sort of seen that people have not seen them or heard from the family in a long, long time, and I'm trying to serve notice to evict them because they have not been paying the rent." Doherty said she was most concerned for the children, who she had read online had not been seen since Thanksgiving. So this goes way back.
Yeah.
Before the last time, which you had said earlier, which was Christmas Eve, that they had communicated with them. So this goes even further back.
Mm-hmm.
It's quoted as saying, "I'm concerned for the family and I'm concerned for my property. I just thought it was me they weren't communicating with because they owed me money. But in general, they had not been in contact with anybody."
So everything came to a head on January 13th of 2020 when an Osceola County Sheriff's Office dispatcher fielded a call from a special agent for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. She was asking for 2 deputies to back up federal agents so they could arrest Anthony Todt for healthcare fraud. "Our agents have eyes on our target right now," the agent said. The agent explained that Todt had been seen entering his home on Reserve Place. When deputies and federal agents swarmed the house, they knocked several times, announcing their intent to arrest Anthony Todt, but got no response, according to multiple supplemental reports from OCSO deputies who responded to the scene. Officials found the front door was unlocked, so they entered the home. "I could smell a strong foul odor, which I suspected to be decomposition of something or someone," one deputy wrote. "The odor became stronger the further I walked into the home."
Oh, could you imagine what goes through your mind when you walk into a home?
Yeah.
And that's what you smell? Because obviously being an officer or a deputy, you probably have some idea as what that smells like. Could you imagine the first thing that goes through your mind?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
So they found Anthony Todt in the home and asked him about his family. He told deputies that his children were at a friend's house for a sleepover, but his wife Megan was upstairs sleeping. He even yelled "Megan" loudly as if to wake her, but there was no response. Officials went upstairs, where they saw the door open to the master bedroom. A body wrapped in blankets was visible on the bed. Sticking out of the blankets was a foot that was black and blue in color, one deputy wrote. Deputies opened the door further to find 2 bodies on a mattress on the floor, both covered in blankets. They determined the body on the bed was a woman and the 2 on the floor were boys. All 3 were deceased for a fair amount of time, the report said. After realizing that Todt's youngest child, their daughter, was unaccounted for, deputies began searching for her until one found a young female child wrapped in blankets at the foot of the bed. Also found dead in the home was the family's dog, Breezy.
Can we just stop and sort of dissect this a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got the deputies that come to the house to serve a warrant. Not the deputies, but the agents. Now, these are federal
FBI.
agents. So you have federal agents that are coming because of the healthcare scheme that we talked about earlier.
Right.
So you've got, you know what, let's just back up even further. So far we've got family members who are missing these people. They can't find them. They've called for welfare checks. You've had Osceola County Sheriff's Office stop by, do welfare checks, and they can't find them. They do find some details of, okay, the car's here, all this stuff. Then you've got federal agents who would come in and say, okay, hey, we can see that he's here. You need to come. So obviously they were on a stakeout. They were waiting for this guy to come. They had to have been. So they probably already knew that the deputies had been there and seen. They probably watched the deputies show up. So the agents come in, they walk in, and he's all nonchalant. He's like, hey, yeah, she's upstairs asleep. No problem. Megan! Oh, sorry, she's sleeping. Did he think that they weren't going to go check?
Who knows? When when somebody does something like that, I can no longer put myself in their shoes, because you just have no idea what somebody like that is thinking.
Yeah, I mean, did he think that they were going to be like, Megan, oh, she's asleep. Oh, yeah, well, you know what? You're under arrest. You're coming with us. And they were just going to take him to jail, and that was it? I got confused when looking into it, that I'm like, what? Did that just really happened? Well, obviously. So moving along here. We don't know what kind of dog breed he was, and that bothers me. And I don't know why it bothers me so much, but it does. Because the dog was also found dead. So not only did he annihilate his family, at this point, allegedly, the dog is dead. So they find his entire family is gone.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I was about to say before I start talking about the dog, Anthony was immediately detained by the agent, and he was taken to the hospital right away because he had told deputies that he ingested pills, a large amount of Benadryl, and then he started talking about hurting himself. And this is all what the sheriff's office was saying to the reporters. And he was brought into the hospital for an evaluation and was placed on suicide watch. Well, God forbid, don't let this guy commit suicide. We wouldn't want that to happen. Well, anyway, he was released 2 days later and then arrested. So obviously, if he thought the hospital food was bad, jail food's about to be a little worse.
So Todt initially confessed to murdering his wife, 3 young children, and the dog. He was charged with 4 counts of homicide and 1 count of animal cruelty for killing the family dog, Breezy. But days later, at his arraignment, Todt pled not guilty to these charges. The victims died, quote, sometime toward the end of December, according to the evidence and Todt's statements, the sheriff told the public. He would not give their cause of death until investigation was completed. Later, in the autopsy notes for Todd's wife, Megan, and their 2 boys, the medical examiner wrote, based upon the circumstances as currently known, the autopsy findings and toxicology analysis, the cause of death was homicidal violence of unspecified means in association with diphenhydramamine toxicity.
Basically Benadryl?
Benadryl overdose. So Megan's, whose body was only tentatively identified, had been stabbed twice in the upper abdomen, according to the report. Alexander and Tyler were both identified by records provided by their dentist. Alexander had a single stab wound measuring 5.9 by 3 centimeters on his left abdomen, and Tyler had a 10.7 by 2.1 centimeter wound on his upper abdomen.
They're identified by dental records? Does that mean their bodies can decompose that much?
That's what I'm assuming.
Okay.
It is still unclear how 4-year-old Zoe lost her life, as the toxicology report shows a non-fatal amount of Benadryl in her system, and she had no visible injuries.
Probably because she was scared to death. I mean, literally. If she were the last one to go, if she witnessed all this, she was literally scared to death. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah. The bodies had been locked inside for so long that no blood was available for toxicology testing. So liver, brain, and chest fluid were tested along with hair samples. The level of ethanol detected in the liver, brain, and chest fluid was minimal and is consistent with decomposition. The liver, brain, and chest fluid also tested positive for Benadryl, which we all know has a sedating effect on the body.
It does for me, I know that. And I can just imagine. Imagine how much Benadryl it had to be. It had to be like an injection amount. I mean, I don't think it's like a pill form. Maybe it is.
I don't know.
Wow. Yeah. Think about how much it would. I mean, I take a couple Benadryl and I get tired, kind of sleepy. But could you imagine? I can't even imagine how much it would take to basically get them to pass out to the point where a couple stab wounds would cause them to just bleed out in pain.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. Well, in March of 2020, which is roughly a year ago, a phone call from jail, Anthony Todt told his sister that he couldn't stop his family from being murdered. I couldn't stop this because I wasn't there, he told Chrissy Caplet, who was in Florida at the time of the call after assuming power of attorney over her older brother, Anthony. In 2 calls between Todt and Caplet in March and April, Todt suggested that his wife Megan had been responsible for her own death as well as the death of the 3 children and the dog as well. He suggested that she may have tried to kill them before. This is sounding eerily similar to you? I mean,
yeah, it does.
Who's it sounding like to you, Lauren?
Well, remember when Chris Watts tried to say that it was Shanann that killed the children and that he killed her out of a fit of rage?
Yep, and I hate that guy too.
Yeah.
Well, there were multiple attempts, just so you know. Multiple attempts in the last over time frame. There's been attempts, Todt said in a quiet voice, almost kind of whispering a little bit, which is why this time I was stuck down here trying to handle things, meaning that's why he was in Florida. So Todt also suggested that his wife prohibited him from asking his extended family for help, kept him from telling anyone about their precarious financial situation, and had barred him from seeing a doctor for health issues. And in July, he wrote a 27-page letter to his once estranged father, Robert Todt, which is a gem, in which he blamed his wife for the murders. He said Megan fed the children a pie laced with Benadryl before fatally being stabbed herself, and that he was 10,000% innocent. Why do men think that this like Watts and Todt think this is going to work?
I don't know.
And quite frankly, a Benadryl pie, really? That's from the movie Thinner, Stephen King, White Man from Town.
Yeah.
You know, that drives me crazy that he would even try to put that out there to try to convince people to believe that his wife baked this Benadryl-laced pie.
Right.
Even if it were true, you think that they're going to believe that now?
Do you think the kids would eat it? Benadryl's nasty.
It is nasty.
Well, according to a detailed article on theday.com, Todd's version of events goes something like this. Todt said that on the day of the deaths of his 3 children, he was not at home, and that after killing the kids, Megan committed suicide in front of him. He told his father that he went to the family's condo, a unit in a bright pink building a few blocks away from their rented home in Celebration, stopped back at the house to grab his tools, and played basketball with his sons. He went back to the condo to make repairs and to look for Zoe's Mickey Mouse necklace. That was the one last thing we needed, Todt said. He told relatives they needed the necklace, quote, for reasons you'll find out later.
Okay.
He then said he fell asleep, so I didn't wake up until the next morning. So because of that, it changed everything, he said in the call. In the letter to his father, Todt said that he took a nap in his minivan outside the condo. When he awoke in the early morning hours, he rushed home, finding the remnants of a fruit pudding pie in a graham cracker crust. It looked good, as all my wife's pies do, but it smelled horrible, he wrote. Now, it turned out to be the Benadryl pie.
That he was talking about the Benadryl pie?
Yes. Todt alleged he met Megan at the top of the stairs upon coming inside. She told him that she had killed the children. Long story short, she gave them the Benadryl/Tylenol PM pie, separated them, woke up at 11:30, stabbed and suffocated each one, Todt wrote. At the news of this, I ran to the bathroom and puked. Megan then tried to pray and meditate with him, Todt said. He said he had a difficult time believing the kids didn't struggle as Megan had told him. He went to the bedroom with a warm washcloth, wiped their faces, cried, and made an effort to make his children look more comfortable. Megan told her husband to stay calm. She asked if he was okay. No, you murdered our children, he said. She replied that she had released their souls. Megan tried to explain the logic of what she had done, Todt said. She gave him an empty, family-sized bottle of Benadryl to throw away, and he took the opportunity to look for the family's phones. When he heard a horrific sound, he found Megan had stabbed herself, the letter continues. He said Megan asked him to stay by her, not to leave her alone to die, as I didn't leave the kids alone to die. Meaning as in Megan didn't leave the kids alone to die. Before I could react, the knife was pulled out and thrown on the bed someplace, Todt wrote. There was blood, a lot of blood. I begged her to let me call in and I would take responsibility as I felt it was all my fault. He then wrote that Megan asked him to leave her for a few moments because he was stressing her out by trying to convince her to get help. He said he couldn't alert the neighbors because that would necessitate leaving Megan alone, and even if he did seek help from the neighbors, they were never home due to work or snowbirding. When he returned to her, she was pounding a family-sized bottle of Benadryl. He pleaded again with her to find help, and she said, I have to be with my babies, Todt wrote. Now, Todt said that Megan asked him repeatedly to help kill her. At one point, he unsuccessfully attempted CPR against her wishes.
Okay. So let's go ahead and unpack.
This is his
Yeah, let's unpack
story.
this. This is unpack his story.
Okay.
So he's claiming that he came home and he saw the pie that was there. It smelled good and all that stuff. He went upstairs, went to sleep, woke up, and then she had killed the children? No,
see, this is where I don't understand. This is where it gets weird for me.
That's why I kind of want to unpack this because I think our listeners really need to hear. And I'll be 100% honest. When you're looking into this, if you read this letter, it seems to me that he's telling the story of exactly what happened. But he's removed himself from the actual events and installed Megan. He's changed the end to accommodate his narrative.
Well, so he said that he went over to the other condo to make repairs and look for Zoe's Mickey Mouse necklace.
Yep.
And he said they needed the necklace for reasons you'll find out later. And then he said he fell asleep and I didn't wake up until the next morning. Because of that, it changes everything. I read somewhere that he was supposed to wake up at like 11:30 at night. But he slept through that and didn't wake up until the next morning.
He bonked his head.
Now he says that he took a nap in his minivan outside the condo, and when he awoke in early morning hours, he rushed home, finding the remnants of the fruit pie. So what I'm thinking is he went over to the condo, looked for the necklace, and then took a nap in the van. Didn't go home. Took a nap in the van. He was supposed to wake up around 11 or 11:30 to do something. But he didn't. He slept all night in the van. Woke up in the early morning hours, rushed home, found the remnants of the fruit pudding pie, and then he met Megan at the top of the stairs when he got home. And then he says, quote, long story short, she gave them Benadryl and Tylenol PM pie, separated them, woke up at 11:30, stabbed them, and then suffocated each one.
See, now that's what I'm saying. I think that's what he did. Now, think about this for a minute. You own 2 condos and you're going to sleep in your van? What? I just don't see that as plausible. Mm-mm. And obviously, I'm not trying to defend this guy or I'm not trying to point a finger. I'm just saying your story kind of tells me exactly what happened. This is almost like a confession, but what he's done is he's removed himself from the guilt and he's applied Megan to the guilt. With the exception, he's fabricated the part at the end. That's my own personal opinion. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah, it's definitely weird.
It's definitely a different scenario. I mean, that's why I say I think he maybe he's the one that baked the pie. I mean, because it was a Benadryl and Tylenol PM pie. Okay, now we've added Tylenol PM, so now we basically figured out a way to make them all go to sleep, which would make sense because they find a small amount of Benadryl. Well, your body will sort of metabolize that, but it could put you out, in which case he could stab him at that point. So I think he's kind of telling on himself, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, all that being said, I find it a little odd that he's kind of telling this story the way it is because I think it's like he's trying to get it off his chest, but it's still there.
Yeah.
Well, in a phone call from jail, which this was released in May of 2020, Todt told his sister, Chrissy, remember Chrissy Caplet, that he didn't remember anything between Christmas and his first week in jail, and that he was asleep on the night that everything happened. Quote, I don't remember anything from the events that happened. I have no idea where I was, where I am, and the only thing I remember is being at the hospital. Other than that, I have no idea about anything, which negates everything he wrote in the letter, in my opinion. Todt also claimed in letters and phone calls from jail that his wife Megan had Lyme disease, which somehow affected her mental health. Huh? In February, a friend from Todt's from high school named Deborah said Todt sent her messages last winter saying that his wife hadn't been, quote, hadn't been herself due to her illness. Lyme disease?
I don't know.
Does that affect your mental health? I'm going to have to look into that because I'm not much of a doctor.
Well, I've got it pulled up right here, actually. And this is from the National Library of Medicine. It's an article on Lyme disease by B.A. Fallon and J.A. Nields. And in here it says that a broad range of psychiatric reactions have been associated with Lyme disease, including paranoia, dementia, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, panic attacks, major depression, anorexia, and obsessive compulsive disorders.
So, and obviously we're not trying to defend his statements here.
No.
But him being in the medical field to that aspect, because remember, he was in the medical field. He has a medical practice.
He was a physical therapist.
I mean, so he does have a firm knowledge of, but see, the thing is now he's had time to sort of massage his story.
Right.
No pun intended. To make it fit his lie, his narrative. And that, I can't, he's like trying everything he can to sort of deter everyone from thinking that it's him. And again, it's similar to, like we talked about before with the other family annihilators, that this is what they do. Mm-hmm. And maybe he's the one with the mental issue, and he's trying to maybe he's got himself convinced.
Well, Todt also blamed Megan for the healthcare fraud in a letter, saying that after he reviewed the case, he found it was the time frame when Meg took over the billing.
So now we're going to blame her for the murders, and now since she's gone and can't defend herself?
In December, after Todt learned of the fraud investigations, he said he stayed in Florida in order to watch Megan because of, quote, red flags.
Oh, jeez.
He concluded the letter to his father by floating the idea of a nonprofit organization in memory of his family named after the first initials of the deceased, MATZB 2009, Alive and at Peace, which would be dedicated to providing resources and services to the chronically ill. At this point in this story, it should be known that this letter to his father was an olive branch of sorts. So Todt had not spoken to his father in decades. After his father was convicted of attempting to murder his mother.
Like father, like son, huh?
On March 19th of 1980, Todt's mother was shot in the face by an intruder.
Whoa.
4 months later, on July 25th, Robert Todt, who was Anthony Todd's father, was arrested and charged with trying to kill his wife in a murder-for-hire plot. Now, despite serving a prison sentence, Robert Todt maintains his innocence in this matter.
Huh. Let me guess. She was trying to shoot herself in the face after I'd taken Benadryl? I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out there. Okay, so while Anthony Todt sat in jail, vigils in honor of his wife and kids were later staged in Celebration, Florida, and also in Colchester, in Connecticut. This is a small Connecticut town where the family lived, where Anthony Todt actually had his physical therapy practice. I think that's where all of this really took place, right? That's where it kind of all started to brew, was the physical therapy practice. I think is really what kind of kicked this off, don't you think?
I think that, yeah, maybe.
The money, and then of course he starts getting, oh my God, what's going to happen to my reputation, my family? Yeah, I'm being investigated. Mm-hmm. This is really going to be bad. Well, the murder shocked the quiet suburban neighborhood located just miles from the theme park, Celebration there. And neighbors at the time said they didn't recognize anything amiss, assuming the family was out of town for the holidays. I mean, which makes sense. So the neighbors were like, well, maybe they're just gone. It's Christmas time. They don't live here. They're snowbirds, which for non-Floridians, when we refer to snowbirding, that means you come down here, you fly south for the winter, and then you go home.
And it was winter time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're talking Christmas time. So it would make sense because I can't believe Connecticut is sunny and hot.
Right. But then the people in Florida thought that they probably went to Connecticut for the holidays.
Exactly.
A lot of snowbirds will come down here, they'll go back up for the holidays, and they'll come back down here, and they'll leave after Easter.
Usually. Come on, Easter.
Yeah. Easter's early this year.
Come on, Easter.
So let's talk about family annihilation.
Let's do it.
Family annihilation, also known as familicide, is defined as a type of murder or murder-suicide in which a perpetrator kills multiple close family members in quick succession, most often children, relatives, spouse, siblings, or parents. According to an article in the CT Post, experts in criminal behavior say so-called family annihilators are often trying to spare their families from an indignity or tragedy, either real or imagined.
Well, maybe, and like I said, maybe the fraud case is what kind of caused this.
Could be.
Like he was afraid that it was really going to start disclosing things.
Dr. N.G. Barrell, the executive director of the New York Center for Neuropsychology and Forensic Behavioral Science, said so-called family annihilators fall into one of three categories. In these cases, there are several different reasons why people will commit a mass murder of their own family, including spouse and children. One obvious reason is that the person is suffering from some sort of psychosis. In cases like that, Barrow said there may be hallucinations. They become delusional and believe that this is a way of sparing their wife and children from some horrific event that they imagine might occur. They think there's some satanic forces or there's some message they're receiving from God that say this is what needs to be done. Other so-called family annihilators are under a different kind of stress, often financial. Although Anthony Todt had not been convicted yet, we do know that he was facing federal charges for insurance fraud and was being evicted from both of his homes in Florida. Barrell said perpetrators of familicide often believe that somehow this is the way to spare his family the humiliation, the stress, and himself the embarrassment of hitting rock bottom.
Okay.
Dr. Neil Websdale, director of the National Domestic Violence Fatality Review Initiative and author of Familicidal Hearts, published in 2010, said that financial strain is a common theme among family annihilators.
I can understand that. I mean, I can't understand why you would annihilate your family, but I can understand the stresses that it causes. I don't want people to misconstrue what I just said there. I mean, it's not funny, but, I understand the stress and what that can cause. And if you have mental instability, stress can be like a trigger. I mean, because, mental health is a huge issue. And sometimes it just sits on the surface and, like a loaded gun, and somebody pulls a trigger, and it's something like stress can pull the trigger, and then it just fires.
Yeah.
Is that a bad analogy?
No, I get it.
Okay.
Roughly a quarter to a third of family annihilator cases appear to have financial problems at their root, Websdale said. Often what we see here is a deep sense of male shame. Perpetrators of familicide are often, quote, highly repressed individuals, Websdale said, facing potential eviction or bankruptcy. The family may be facing destitution, but, quote, appear on the surface to be respectable. The goal, Barrell said, is to spare the family all these assaults to their sense of well-being and their sense of normalcy. It reflects very disoriented thinking and very strained and depressive type thinking and desperation, which culminates in this kind of terrible act. This act is called Anomic Familicide, according to Dr. Kevin Barnes-Sini, assistant professor of criminal justice at the University of New Haven. It's when you feel like you're going to lose everything and you have an attempt to immortalize your family. The third kind of family annihilator is attempting to extricate themselves from a family life that they can't tolerate. Farrell said, perhaps there's an impending divorce, a threat to remove the children, or an extramarital affair. Take Chris Watts, for example.
A shitty example.
They decide that they're going to take matters into their own hands in order to presumably pursue a better existence without being shackled by the constraints of having a family to support and take care of. So most so-called family annihilators are men, Farrell said. Now, Webstale estimates that 95% of the perpetrators are male, though they are so rare, there's been no real studies on the subject. It's fairly rare, Farrell said. It might come up every couple years. It requires an awful lot of killing. Well, I can think of a few right off the top of my head. Chris Watts, obviously. Now, he was having an affair. And then there's the case of John List, who murdered his mother, wife, and 3 children to hide the fact that he was having financial problems. That happened in New Jersey, I believe, in the 70s. Scott Peterson, who murdered his wife and their unborn child, he was having an affair.
Who was the one I was talking about earlier? Lori Vallow? Was that Annihilation? Family Annihilation?
Yeah, well, she killed her kids.
Yeah.
And probably her brother and her ex-husband.
Okay.
But not all at the same time.
Okay.
I think Lori Vallow is more like a...
Just a murderous bitch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so...
Who was the other one? Sorry. You're probably about to say her name.
Susan Smith?
Yeah, that one. That's the crazy...
Drove her 2 young boys into the lake and let them drown because her boyfriend didn't want kids.
Yeah. She got out, supposedly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Robert William Fisher, who's still on the run, by the way, shot his wife in the head, cut her throat, and then slashed the throats of his 10-year-old son and 13-year-old daughter, then set the home on fire, fleeing the house before a natural gas line caused a massive explosion.
Was he in Florida?
No, it was out in Arizona, I believe.
The guy's still on the loose.
Now, professional wrestler Chris Benoit strangled his 43-year-old wife Nancy to death and suffocated his 7-year-old son Daniel before hanging himself from a weight machine in the basement in his family's Fayetteville, Georgia home.
Can I just give you a little tidbit on that?
What's that?
Because in my job, I have sales reps that come in. One of the sales reps was Nancy's first husband.
Oh.
So he was actually married to Nancy prior. And then he caught her having an affair with Chris Benoit. So they got divorced. So I actually got that story firsthand because he was being interviewed. They were the first to contact him. Police came up and talked to him and investigated with him to find out what was going on, to make sure there was no animosity. So he was actually brought into the investigation. So I actually have firsthand knowledge of that particular case. So, and not to mention, I was a wrestling fan, not that I was a fan of them, but the guy that was married to Nancy originally, he too was a wrestler. Yeah. Originally, but now he's a sales rep, so he didn't make WWE money.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get into these people and you start to think, you start listening them and, listing the names of these people and you're going through this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I guess it's really not that rare, is it? It's kind of a scary thought.
It is.
It's not as rare as you think.
It's not as prevalent as some other crimes.
Well, when the ones you mentioned here, were kind of national news.
Yeah.
Once Nancy Grace gets her hands in there, once this stuff hits the airways, the AP gets it. This is national news. This is not the stuff that gets swept under the rug. The case we're talking about now was kind of a Florida case. It never really hit that big national news until finally it kind of blew up at some point.
Yeah.
But, it's not as rare as you think. And like I said, that's kind of a scary thought to think that this could happen more often. And it's not really so known because it doesn't hit that national media attention.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, so back to my brain here because that Lauren just kind of scared the hell out of me with all that stuff. So I'm like, I can't believe I forgot about all these.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Anthony Todt, let's get back to this douche. His trial has been pushed back a few times due to COVID-19, but is now scheduled to finally occur in September of 2021. Okay. So maybe now we can get some sort of finality for this guy. Hopefully it's not continued. We can get proceeding at least with what's going on here. So up to this point, he had faced the death penalty in each of the 4 killings until the Orange/Osceola County State Attorney, Aramis Ayala, basically filed a notice that the prosecution would no longer seek capital punishment in Todt's case. So I'm not sure if they're like, okay, we're not going to seek capital punishment in this case. Are they wanting him to just rot in hell? Like, we think that you should just live your life in jail because it's going to be a worse.
Yeah, I think that's a worse fate anyway than the death penalty.
We talk about this so much.
I know.
After the one case that we spoke about before, the Adam Walsh case with Jeffrey Dahmer. I'll mention on every episode because that just literally was one of the things, because I've always been an advocate for the death penalty. And that's one of the things that really has changed my mind and kind of brought me back. Like, you know what? Maybe, just maybe. So basically the guy's going to rot in hell. So we're going to have to sit and wait. And hopefully, I'm sure, not hopefully, but hopefully he'll get what he's got coming.
Yeah.
And live his life in hell, which I'm sure that's probably what's going to happen. He's going to be in jail or hell, whichever way you want to spell it. And obviously we can keep you updated. But I do have a question for you, and just to get your opinion. We talked about the family annihilation, the stresses that come. Do you feel like maybe with last year with COVID and the shutdowns and the lockdowns, do you think that maybe that the financial burdens that people are facing might cause more of these in the future? I mean, do you feel like this is going to bring upon maybe more stress? I guess it's always a possibility. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, as it applies to this case, this happened before COVID.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. But I'm saying as we're talking the case today.
Yeah. It's really hard to say at this point how people have really been affected or how bad people have really been affected by this financially and mentally. I mean, I know a lot. I've been affected mentally by this, and thank goodness we've been okay financially. I mean, I got unemployment. I was off work, but I got unemployment. But being stuck at home was not fun. I mean, your world becomes very small.
Well, see, and that's one of the things I'm thinking is maybe because now you normally have the family model where the woman goes to work, the man goes to work, the children go to school. And in some cases, a lot of people now, you had the woman staying home, the man staying home, and the child staying home. So everybody sort of in the same house. You couldn't go out and expand. So I'm not sure I'm not going to say I'm interested. I guess it's a bad term, but I guess I'm interested to find out how that's going to affect people in the long run,
Well, I guess we'll just have to see what the long-term effects are going to be.
I sure hope it doesn't go the direction of the Todt family case or the Chris Watts case, because it's just, or any of the other ones that you mentioned that really blew my mind that I'm not going to say I forgot about, but I didn't really consider them. So, well, hopefully we don't have to do any more of these kind of cases.
Right.
I'm sure there's plenty of them out there, but hopefully you won't have to hear them coming in the future. So anyway, I guess that's going to be everything for tonight. The Todt family murders hold up for some updates. I'm sure we'll keep you posted as we go along.
Again, if you'd like to support the show, please subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Paradise After Dark podcast.
And folks, please check out our website for the links to all of our social media. You scroll to the bottom of the page. They're all there. It's got our Patreon link on there. It's got our TikTok link on there. Our merch store is actually on page 3, I think. You just click the little store link. You're there. And there's so much more to check out on the website. Please join our mailing list.
Make sure to subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening on and rate and review. This really helps us branch out and reach a wider audience.
And thank you all for listening
to Paradise After Dark.
Dark. Hello, everyone. If you choose to live your life in the bike lane, then you need to go visit Cycle Shack in Naples. They have everything from the latest accessories to comfortable apparel, component upgrades, or pretty much anything you would need to make your time on your bike the best it can be. Not only do they offer all the goodies that you could possibly want for your bike, they also offer the best brands of new bikes, and they also perform expert repairs on just about any bike. And they have a certain knowledge. I mean, it's a knowledge that goes above and beyond industry standard. So this goes way above and beyond anything you can come to expect from other shops. And Cycle Shack isn't just about selling and servicing bikes. They're about promoting the culture of bicycling, from leisure to fitness to competition. So whatever your needs are regarding anything cycling, be sure to visit the folks at Cycle Shack. They are located at 7211 Vanderbilt Beach Road in Naples, Florida. They're located in the Vanderbilt Commons Plaza on the northwest corner of Vanderbilt Beach Road and Collier Boulevard. So get out there and start living your bike life possible.